So Joseph, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you see my screen, Mark?
I can, yes, thank you.
All right, excellent. All right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for your time. Today's presentation is called Not Your Traditional BYOB. It's a play on what you would normally expect when someone says BYOB, but it's called Building Your Own Brand. And so I'd like to start by thanking all of you today for joining us for the Trailblazers soft skills session. I know that your time is valuable, and the fact that you're willing to invest in yourself, come here and learn a few of these things, get some of the guidance over the course of the 5 weeks. That's a great step. And thank you for providing us the opportunity to speak with all of you. What I want to do is tell you a little bit about myself first and a little bit about my journey and how you go about how I got here will help you get where you want to go, and or whether your aspirations are a solution architect, a business architect, application architect, or wherever you might feel you land in the ecosystem. I'm going to walk you through or provide you some of that context. So a little bit about me. I've been in the ecosystem a little over 9 years. I am a 17-time certified application architect, technically, according to Salesforce. I am with a partner now. I've been with Capgemini for about a year, but I've helped implement Salesforce at iHeartRadio and another national financial services firm. And right now, my current client is a global manufacturing company. So I have ultimately, I enjoy this kind of presentation or enjoy this kind of involvement in the community. When Mark reached out for other community group leaders to step up, I like being a mentor, and I've helped 23 different admins earn 34 certifications on their Trailblazer journey. What I want to talk about is when you decide that you want to be an architect. I'm going to share when I decided. I knew I had been a business analyst for a very long time, and I was a little bit getting into the Salesforce ecosystem as changes were happening at our company. And we went into a meeting room, and inside that meeting room, I had my laptop open and I was in the middle of the table, and the project manager was down at the end of the table trying to project to the screen at the other end of the room. And they were like, "Joseph, your computer is blocking the screen." And sitting across from me, I'm not going to name his name, but sitting across from me was the architect. And I pushed the projector on the table towards the space of the architect, so as to move the projector rather than close my laptop. And the entire room got silent because I had just done that. And I looked around the room and I said, "Well, what, did everybody see only one solution to that problem?" Because everybody in the room thought the only way to fix that problem was for Joseph to close his laptop or move his computer, right? Nobody thought, hey, I could move the projector and solve the problem. And so that's ultimately when I decided I wanted to be an architect. And then my journey, I sought out experience in various roles. And we'll talk about this in a little bit from your journey and how you build your brand and craft where you want to head, because it's that in a iterative or rapid development environment like Salesforce, where you are continually deploying quickly, working with the business changes on a regular basis. On a regular basis, the changes have to go in quick, and you're typically all participating in multiple roles. Sometimes you're the tester, sometimes you're the business analyst getting the requirements, right? Admins in in small shops where there's 40 users and you've got one admin doing everything from configuration to security to, process builders, so on and so forth. You're the builder, you have to test it, you have to push it through the whole software development lifecycle. So the time that you spend in various roles is of benefit. And then the other thing that I would want to tell you is like that this is going to take time outside of work, which you all are clearly demonstrating by being here today, that you have to invest in your Trailblazer journey outside of just simply getting experience day to day in order to make things happen. So I'm going to share this picture. This is a picture I got from uh, a friend, and how many people, I can't really see everybody. I maybe should look for the display. I can only see Mark. How many people have seen this picture before? Is this, maybe anyone wants to speak up?
We're getting some comments coming in, a couple saying they have, some saying they haven't. So it seems like it's around about 50-50 at the moment coming through in the chat here.
Okay. All right. So the first thing that you're wondering, I'm sure, is like, how did the turtle get there, right? And that's precisely the moral of the story is, the turtle did not get there by himself, and he had help. And so the first part of the journey is knowing that you need help and where to go get the help and how to be engaged. And then part of that is, of course, the Trailblazer community. So ultimately, what I want to do is provide you the keys to the kingdom. And the agenda is structured around what are your action items after today's meeting? Not, what are you supposed to get out of this, but what should you do next? And how does that stuff get aligned? Ultimately, we're going to talk through your vision, the pillars to your personal brand, the career roadmap, and how you get involved. All right. So there is a place called My North Star app. It's I got the URL here. Mark might want to type it out and paste it into the chat, but it is a Heroku-based app someone built where you can go through and you identify values for yourself about who you are, and they're work related, they're personal related, they can be faith related, family related. um, so you put those words that mean something to you, and it helps build for you a vision plan, a vision map. And then from there, you have to find your voice. You have to announce your vision. You have to share that message with the world. Announce that you're here. Be active in what is important to you. Accountability is very important to me. And ultimately, like the people who I work with on a day-to-day basis, we talk about we're going to make mistakes, but accountability is a value that is important to me. It's one I instill in my team. It's one I instill with my mentees. And ultimately, you need to know what those values are for you, because you want to work alongside people who share your values. You want to work on finding out what your team values are, so that you're collectively successful. So when you focus on those values, it will help you build your vision for your journey as a trailblazer. Ultimately, in your identity, those are positive personal attributes. They're important values that you identify for work qualities. Someone is punctual to meetings. There's the way that you construct your vision statement. Be concise, simple, make it memorable, right? I read somewhere along the way it could, for I don't know where, could have been one of those accessory stores back in the 80s that said, if you're not riding the wave of change, you're beneath it, and so like that is something memorable. And then ultimately, you have to share your vision and be involved. You have to look for how do you get involved and amplify what's important to you. If you take a look at some of the key, what I'll call key MVPs in our Salesforce ecosystem, those like Salesforce Ben or Automation Champion or Jen Lee and whatnot, they went out and they built a brand, they built an identity, they had things that they were focused on, they made memorable experience so that when people see that sort of stuff, they levitate to it and read it. And they've done that by being consistent. At the same time, this is one of the ones that's actually, I had been meeting with a Salesforce person by the name of Mary Stockton. I think she just left Salesforce if I saw her LinkedIn update in the last week. But she was a trailblazer with Salesforce for a long time about diversity and equality. And you want to have, diversification as well in your feed. You want to understand the ideas and opinions of those who are different from you. Like I am someone who is clicks over code. I will admit that. I believe you can scale a platform. I've scaled a platform from one division of 125 users to eight divisions and 600 plus users, primarily with clicks, less than 55,000 characters of custom Apex. So I don't look at, I will admit, I am dismissive of coded solutions. When someone says to me, well, we can code that, I can code it faster, I dismiss that. I will admit I'm not very open to it, but you need to include the people who are in favor of that through the, diversifying your feeds so that you get that full perspective around your vision and you eliminated any blinders. All right, so we're going to jump in here to some the 4 pillars of your personal brand, the compass to guide you through your journey. And the first is building your credentials. And I illustrated it this way, actually, internally here at Capgemini when I joined last year to a new class of people coming in that basically talked to them about, the breadth of their expertise across various platforms and the depth of their expertise technically, and how do they go about getting deeper and how do they go about getting wider. And I had been sharing this presentation I wrote it at the beginning of the year, but I've shared it a couple times. And someone once told me this year that architects, or a product owner's, a developer's information or knowledge is an inch wide and a mile deep, and an architect's information or knowledge is a mile wide but an inch deep. So it's the opposite. But ultimately, you have to balance going deeper and wider at the same time, and also supplement that with industry expertise. How things are done in financial services or in government work or in not-for-profit, it's all different. You might think that you've been working on Service Cloud and you've been dealing with Service Cloud and process builders and flows and all kinds of automation, but all of that is turned on its head when you're in a healthcare industry, and you have to make sure that HIPAA information and other PII and whatnot is masked inside of Service Cloud. And then it's turned on its head yet again if you're in the financial services industry and you realize like, hey, when you call your bank and you dispute a charge and you want a credit on your credit card, there are actual laws that say how long the credit card company has to issue that credit on your account. And so if you have a brand new ticket for that, you have to make sure that that's done, or you can be penalized. The company can be penalized for occurrences of being late with credits on accounts. So those sorts of things vary how you may very well implement the same type of cloud across industry or industry. But here, you have to choose how you go about specializing, whether you want to be, working in the marketing space, the CPQ space, or whatnot, and then you continue to build deeper your expertise, and you have to do that as well to get the solid, foundation for architecture. You do have to get to platform developer 1 in order to be an architect, a certified architect, and even a certified B2B architect requires that you're an application architect first. So you can't be a B2B architect without also getting past things like platform developer 1. All right. Any questions about this slide? No.
There's no questions that I can
Okay.
see in the chat or in the
Okay.
Q&A.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead here. So the next part of your personal brand is managing your message, and that's important because how you interact with people on your project team or with your customers, it is important that you are influencing the story. Seek clarity, and you have to build a rapport to do that with welcoming a conversation, getting people to go ahead and come to the table and willing to have that dialogue and communication with one another, to keep everybody on the same page, alleviate confusion, make sure that leadership is not surprised. If you're empowered to be a leader on a team and manage an implementation with your leadership, you want to be able to do that in such a way such that you're seen as the person who is bringing together the harmony and managing the message rather than reacting to the message. When people are disconnected and concerned about something, that's when they escalate, right? Because they feel you're not hearing them. They're saying something to you, they're saying it over and over, they think they're right, they've dug their heels in, and that's where they begin to escalate. Then they add people, then you find yourself on multiple meetings, having the exact same discussion, wondering why you're having this discussion. Literally, this happened for me 30 minutes ago. The meeting before this meeting, I'm now wondering why I'm having a meeting for what seemed like the 10th or 11th or 12th time with 7 people, simply because one new person has joined the team. And you have to look at how you're managing teammates. You have to look at how you're managing your leadership. And when you position things from a perspective of seeking clarity, questions are just simply less threatening. Why are we having this meeting? Would you tell me more about that? What do you mean by product family? What do you mean by this? When you're seeking clarity, why are these things important to you? how will this help you? People feel more engaged, they feel counted, and ultimately, when people feel counted and included, you're going to keep them performing with the same goals that you have in mind. Okay, the next piece of your personal brand is really how you represent yourself and the presence that you create in what I'm going to ultimately say the social media space. And some of this is academic, and I'm not sure how. I'm sure all of you are probably on Twitter, and you definitely all have trailblazer.me profiles if you're earning badges, and you're probably on LinkedIn. And so ultimately here is what you'll see in the way that I've set up my profiles, and these are what you see. Sorry, I didn't advance the page. So what you see here on my profiles is there's consistency in how I've described myself. These are a little bit older, but I use the same photo. I use the same photo everywhere so that people begin to recognize me. I mean, yes, it's great to go ahead and have your trail emoji out there if you have one, but on LinkedIn, people may not understand what a trail emoji is, right? And, it might be great that you had a wonderful time on your vacation at Disney World, but you don't, necessarily want to put your Disney World picture that you'd put on maybe your Twitter profile on your LinkedIn profile. So, I have a very consistent, you should have a very consistent photo, same profile, something memorable, some sort of fact or trivia thing that might make it easy to be recognized. One thing that I like to include in mine is I've seen Bruce Springsteen literally around the world on 4 continents 109 times so far. So like when people who get to know me and whatnot, they remember that, like, that's the guy who's seen Bruce on 4 continents. So when you're out there and you're building that presence or your brand, people will know. I'm sorry, puppies are going to bark. People are going to know what you're about, how you're involved, what your background is. And ultimately, one of the key things here is to create lineage or linkage with this. I'm sorry. This is my son. Normally, I would not take a call in the middle of a meeting like this, but this is a little bit different. Give me a half second, please. Do you want to start the recording? Okay, thank you very much. So ultimately here, what you want to do is create lineage back and forth. So you should be familiar with your Trailblazer profile, having the icons down here. You can see in the bottom right corner for LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. I put my Facebook on there. That's optional, but you can create those. Over here in the first picture is the website. You can only have one on your Twitter profile. So mine points to my trailblazer.me profile right here. Then ultimately in this contact information section, and I can show you this afterwards, but in the contact info section on LinkedIn, you can create other websites, and those websites, the websites that you can put in there, you can put in both your Twitter, your trailblazer.me, but you're driving people, you're keeping them engaged from LinkedIn, they can get to Twitter, or Trailblazer. From Trailblazer, they can get to LinkedIn. Twitter, from Twitter, they can get to Trailblazer, and you're creating that loop of where they can find all of your credentials. Because I sure would like to, be able to see all 17 certificates and 10 super badges and everything on my LinkedIn page, but people don't know where to find it, but they certainly know where to look for that on my Trailblazer profile. And so you keep them engaged by making it easy for them to navigate back and forth between those various sections. All right. So the last piece I would have here, and this is a little bit less structured, but ultimately, someone had asked me a while ago, and it's funny because I saw a blog article yesterday about like the 5 things that someone wished they knew before they became an architect. And I haven't read that blog article, but I sent it to someone because one, I can go back and read it. But these are the 5 things that I would go ahead and tell you are key pieces of advice for yourself. Build with tomorrow in mind. Never, and this will sound crazy, like never leave your description field empty, because you have to think about you all. And when I put it in this context, it's gonna ring true, right? How many of you have inherited an org where you've said, I don't know what they were thinking when they did this, and you find that description fields are empty, or what were they doing? Code wasn't documented, comments weren't put in Apex or this process builder or whatever, and the like. So build with tomorrow in mind, even if that just means your documentation. That is something that you all can control. Ideally, solutions should be scalable, and your architects should be taking care of having scalable solutions. But everybody, whether you're a entry-level admin or not, has the opportunity to contribute to that notion of building with tomorrow in mind by simply not leaving the description field blank. And then tell me more. That's a very going back to the being curious and engaging with your customers or your teammates. Tell me more. If you don't understand something, just simply say that. Tell me more. Never say no. That's a paramount. It's right there in the center. It's in bold. It's important because as soon as you tell someone no, they're going to go look for a way to do it themselves. And that may mean outside of Salesforce. And if they do that, then you disconnect the user from the space where you want them to do their work, which is inside of Salesforce. So find a way to take their idea, their feedback, their comments, and put it somewhere so that they feel heard and counted, but do not tell them no. That will be critical, or you'll be finding out that you're later going to be converting their spreadsheet into Salesforce because that's the way they've done it. Use the parking lot to acknowledge questions and confirm things, and then get back to the person. I tell that to a lot of entry-level consultants who are like, well, what if I don't know? Just tell them like, hey, this is what I think. I'm going to confirm what I think we should do. I'll put that on the parking lot and I'll get back to you. Don't overcommit, right? Because that puts you in that position of where you're overcommitting and under delivering. So a parking lot is a great tool or resource to do that. And I should have put the hashtag on this last item, the always be learning, picked up from Sue, I think, in Austin. She popularized it, I think, years ago, but Trailhead uses it now regularly. The always be learning. You can always learn something more. I can learn something. The platform changes on a daily basis. It feels like sometimes. And so even those of us who have been at it a while can learn something more with doing some learning on Trailhead, or exploring in the community, or even, I'm not one, like a good example for me is I don't use Salesforce DX regularly. I wanted to do the Lightning Web component, Super Badge, and I had to have one of the developers on my team show me how to modify the Java setting in Salesforce DX in order for me to move through a challenge. Like, I just simply didn't know how to do that yet. So you can always be learning, and there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that. All right, so where do you go now? So, oops, I left this here. So ultimately, you have to put your vision into action. You have to review your career path. I tacked on Capgemini. I reused this slide for a discussion here. So, but review your career path. Do you want to be someone who is functional, or do you want to be someone who is technical? Go ahead and do some objective settings. Go ahead and say to yourself, hey, how do I get involved in the community? What are the other things that I can do? Certifications, super badges? Have I learned about Agile? Have I learned about the DevOps tools? Capado, AutoRabbit is another one of them. What have I learned what have I done? What have I built that others may find or feel would be of value if I did that within the community? Mark and others are always looking for people to speak at the user groups, and start small. Like that's how the MVPs, like Shell and others got started. They did a small blog article, they did a small presentation, and then they refined their skills and they did it again. There is no one right way. There are many ways to go, and that's ultimately why this is called your trailblazer journey, right? And so you'll go ahead and do that. One of the things that that I would tell you is that functional and technical may look very similar at times. I do have a slide with regards to that. But ultimately, when you're looking to grow, some of it is business analysis, some of it is development, some of it is, are you going to be a functional lead, and are you going to help the business understand the what, or are you going to be a technical lead and help the business understand the how? And ultimately, you may very well end up in the latter part of your journey at the exact same point, being a solution architect, being a project manager or a technical architect, or managing an engagement. How do you grow your career to the point where you're, managing engagements, be it if you go to work for the mothership and Salesforce hires you and you're working on multiple engagements for Salesforce, or you're working for multiple engagements at a consulting company, or even if you're running multiple projects within a small or medium or large size privately held company, you have multiple stakeholders. Those are multiple engagements. How are you managing all of them at the right level with each of the business owners and whatnot? And like I said, there's no one. You can bounce back and forth. You can become a business analyst, you can become a developer, you can go back to being a functional lead, you can come over to being a technical lead. There's no one clear path. As I said, it's a journey. So I'm going to go ahead here and bring everything together. And the reason that I, put as you might have caught on, to the corner items, throughout the course of the presentation, things like the part of your credentials, and part of your message, and part of how you build a presence in social media. And part of the advice, that I've given you, all of these things are those pillars that build, your personal your personal brand. And that is where you're going to inevitably go the path that you want to go forward. But as I said at the beginning, I was going to leave you with, how does this tie together with regards to um, what you do next. And that's that ultimately, if you remember that tortoise or turtle on the fence post at the beginning, the final step in all of this is your commitment to participate, collaborate, be active in the community, and give back to others. Myself, I'm here today, Mark's here today because somebody helped us on our journey. So, at one point in time, I was that turtle. I'm still a turtle. I still have people helping me. Um, but someone, decided to help me and put me up on the fence post. And now I'm here helping you. Mark is here helping pull this series together to ultimately help other turtles end up on top of the fence post. So you can't get there by yourself, and you need to help others get there afterwards to continue building the path and the bridge and the like. So that's the essence of what I wanted to talk to you about today. The things that go into your journey, how to get there, the things that should be important to you, uh, leveraging the resources and whatnot. I did see a couple questions pop up in the QA, or at least the QA numbers climbed to 2. Mark, do you want to go through the questions or open it up for general discussion from others?
Yeah, so well, thank you again, Joseph, for that really good session. So we'll go through the 2 questions that have come up, but what we'll also do is if anybody does have any questions that they would like to ask, if you want to raise your hand, you can do that using the reactions tab, and there'll be a raise hand button, and we'll look to allow you to talk to ask the question. But there's a question that's come through, which I want us to try and answer. The attendee's not here anymore, but I think for the purpose of the recording, it'd be good to answer that question. And the questions come from Kurat, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right. Please do let me know on LinkedIn or Twitter if I'm not. But the question states, if one decides to focus on depth of knowledge and not much on the variety of it, for example, not branching off into different clouds, do you think that's limiting yourself as a professional?
Absolutely not. No. There are people who prefer to be technical and be behind the scenes. It's a different level. It will be a different place for you on your team. But we have technicians. I had a person on my project team. I wish he'd we asked him if he wanted to try a new role. He said yes, he'd try the new role. And then 2-3 weeks later, he raised his hand and said, "Hey, I would like to do this instead." And I was just like, why didn't you say that 3 weeks ago? Because we would have helped you go that path 3-4 weeks ago rather than starting this journey. So it's okay to want to be technical and to be a developer and to be focused on that. The other skills, the reason we're having the soft skills conversation like this is to ultimately be engaged with customers and grow into architecture and whatnot. You can be a very good technical architect, but you'll just have a different role. Will it be client facing? Um, if you don't understand Experience Cloud, you might be limited in, you might be able to code, but there are nuances about how to code or what to do with inside of Experience Cloud with the way that, right, profiles and security and everything is slightly different inside of Experience Cloud than it is in Sales Cloud, right? Because you have to worry about the community cloud profiles and those sorts of things. So like if you don't get that experience in different clouds, there's some limitation, but there's nothing wrong at all, by no means, being very technically focused.
Uh, that's great. One thing I would add on to that is just coming from my experience as a solo admin, sometimes you will have to venture out into other clouds. It really depends on your role. So sometimes being in an admin job will give you a lot of different scope, depend on the organization that you're in. But one of the beauties with Salesforce is there's so much room to do lots of different work with lots of different clouds, work with lots of different tools that you can essentially almost specialize in things as well. Okay, so the next question that we've got, and I'm not sure if the attendees here or not, because the questions come in anonymously, and the question is, how do you build your brand if you're trying to break into the ecosystem with no Salesforce work experience or certs?
Yeah, that's a great question. That comes up all the time.
Mhm.
So I myself, personally, when I was a hiring manager, I always hired newbies. You know, um, there are pros and cons. And someone with no experience also doesn't come with any no bad habits, right? If I'm saying that correctly. So, like if you're a program manager or an architect and you can shape or mold them into the way that you want them to know things should be done, and that's great. At the same time, right? Um, Ultimately, I would say go back to put your time into Trailhead. Salesforce is great with regards to giving away Trailhead and the training for free and whatnot, and everything you need to know to pass those exams really is out there. Maybe not every single question is out there in a Trailhead module where you will have seen it or whatnot, but they do a pretty darn good job at putting people, do the admin trails and you can pass your admin cert. I know I've seen it happen. I've built trails for people, to go ahead and study to learn how to um, pass their Tableau CRM and Einstein Discovery certification, and that's another one. The admin certificate is critical. It's the foundation of the platform, and understanding how to configure. It's a prerequisite for almost everything, really. Not everything. There are some you can get without it, but ultimately, if you're involved in the community and you're building your Trailhead badges, and you're participating in Twitter and whatnot, you will find resources. There's a community called job postings where people post jobs on LinkedIn. There's the Salesforce, or no, there's Trailblazer Alliance, something to that effect. I can't quite remember the exact name right now, but there are ways to get involved and get familiar with getting some practical experience and breaking into the ecosystem. And you just have to be willing to try and whatnot. Not everybody walks into, and maybe you shouldn't. It might be by design that you don't walk into a, six-figure admin job in New York City, with 6 months of experience and one cert. You know, you have to get there. But there are those jobs out there. Look for, junior level and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that's some really good points as well. And one thing as well is just on the certs front, although certs are really helpful in terms of your career, not every, and there's a lot of people within the community who've landed Salesforce jobs and have become really good professionals without being certified. So it depends on the role, on the organization. So I'll be completely transparent with myself. I wasn't certified when I got my first Salesforce job, nor my second. I've only just gotten certified within the last 2 months, and I've been a Salesforce admin for 5 years. So you can actually do the job without being certified. Certifications are evidence that you know that you have the skills relevant to that role. They're not necessarily they're not the skills itself. They basically say, as an admin, this is the benchmark of the knowledge that you should have as an admin. And the certification provides essentially evidence that you do have that knowledge. But that's kind of my story of not getting any of my jobs while being certified. So it doesn't have to be that way, although certifications are fantastic. In terms of career stuff as well, there's a really good scheme that Bradley Rice does called Talent Stacker. I'll share the link to that in the chat as well. I'm not fully sure whether it's just US based, if I'm honest. I just keep up with Bradley's YouTube content. So it's worth potentially looking into a program like that. Kyle says it's global. Thanks, Kyle. So have a check of something like that. It's a really good scheme from what I've seen and the stories that's coming out from that. So if you're struggling to kind of find your way into the ecosystem, have a look at that. There's other schemes as well out there. Yes, Naveen. So Bradley Rice's program called Talent Stacker. And Susan's mentioned that went through Talent Stacker as well. Yvonne's mentioned about UK based for Talent Stacker. I honestly don't have an answer to that question because I have only seen one story from someone in the UK who's done Talent Stacker. The stories I've seen has come out mainly from the US, but it's something that would be worth looking into, but I don't necessarily know much about it from the UK side. And in terms of the cost, I don't honestly know what stuff like that is. Just go to the website and have a look. They'll give you all of the information that you need for that. In terms of other questions, we've only got about 7 minutes left. Let's have a look and see. There's a question here from Sunil. I don't know, Sunil, would you like to ask your question around the business analyst side of things, if I allow you to talk? There you go. So would you like to ask your question, Sunil? Okay, not seeing anything coming through from Sunil, so I'll just share the question that's come through, which is, can a Salesforce, where do you think a Salesforce business analyst can also handle technical admin tasks as well if they are willing to do it in a project? Do you have any thoughts on this question, Joseph? I mean, it's not necessarily fully around the content of the session.
Yeah, sure. So, yes, I certainly find that there's, we call them citizen developers sometimes. So there are things that business analysts can handle with regards to the technical implementation. The challenge you get ultimately when you get into a larger organization, really this would be a high level answer, but there is a way to release the software. There are best practices about how you actually develop, where you configure, whether that development is clicks or code, all of its development. If you're doing configuration, there's a way to get it into prod. So when you're dealing with a large scale team, you have to deal with things like regression testing and merging changes and whatnot. So if your team is large enough to have multiple business analysts, and one of them is even senior, and they're doing technical admin tasks to help in a project, that person has to make sure that they've also checked in code the right way, or push their things and made sure that they've smoke tested it when they've released it. And then you get into, do you need a release manager? So yes, people do have the opportunity to play multiple roles, but and there's nothing wrong with that.
Great. The only thing I would say to tag on to that is just about any role that you do within Salesforce, you can do other things as well if you, again, put the work in and spend time learning those things. I find as a solo admin, I do a little bit of just about everything because I'm the only person managing Salesforce in my organization. So, you can do pretty much anything that you want if you give the time and the opportunities to learn. We don't have too much longer left. I'm just going to ask one final question, if that's okay, Joseph, because I think it's quite an important one.
Sure.
Any other questions that we have, I'll look to Steve and try and work on something outside of the session. But the last question I want to ask is around, so the questions coming is, how do you handle burnout from having to maintain social media and personal brand? And there's different things you attend, like community groups and what have you, in addition to your full-time job. So questions like, how do you handle doing all of this stuff and avoiding burnout?
Yeah, so that's a phenomenal question. We probably could have a whole session on it. So I myself, I do go through, everyone goes through burnouts. One of the things I like to say, is the view from the mountains would not be so majestic without having the view of the valleys, right? And so sometimes you're in a valley, sometimes you're just in a low, and it comes and goes. Like ultimately balancing it, time management, where you're passionate. Like I'm passionate about giving back to the community. I'm found a way to be involved in I have found a way to be involved in the community within a partner. I've been able to bring that energy to young staff, and it's infectious. And when you're with other people who are equally excited, then you feed on one another. But you're right, it is a balancing act. I do feel disconnected. Like there's like I was in the right place at the right time when Mark asked about doing this. And I was like, sure, I'll get involved. And last week, like we had to pick days to when we could speak. And I ended up with August. I got back from vacation yesterday. And lo and behold, there is a statewide event for the state of Texas next week, Thursday, the 26th. I'm a community group leader for San Antonio. That's one of the four major cities in Texas, between Dallas, Austin, Houston, and San Antonio. Technically, we're larger in size than Houston and Dallas. And I had no idea. Like I was talking to someone last night and I'm like, I have not even heard that this is happening. And they're like, yeah, it's been out there for a month and I missed it. I just completely missed it. I'm like, well, I don't know how I missed it, but I did. So burnout happens, and are you paying attention to everything? And, no one can be on Twitter all the time, so pick the areas that are important. Try not to spread yourself too thin. Don't work on multiple certifications at one time. Focus on one certification. You'll feel a sense of accomplishment. One of the things that you do that happens when you spread yourself too thin is you feel like you get nothing done. So like if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to prepare for this, I'm going to prepare for this, I'm going to prepare for this, and you're wondering like, 4 months later, why nothing is done, it's because you're trying to do 3 things simultaneously. You're making some progress, but everybody gets motivated by getting across the finish line. Everybody feels motivated by earning that cert. Everybody feels motivated by earning the super badge, So that's what I would tell you.
That's really great. So thanks for that, Joseph. And that's a really good question. I think burnout's a really important subject. One thing I would add to that is as well, because you can do a load of different things, but one thing that can help combat burnout is actually finding things that energize you. So whether that's going for a hike, whether that's going out bike rides and stuff like that. Exercise is quite a big factor in that, but it could just be something as simple as reading a good book, having a Saturday off and just watching TV. It's, find the things that kind of fill you up with energy and positivity, and kind of make that into a regular habit as well. So that's a good point with burnout as well. But yeah, like you said, Joseph, I think burnout's a topic you could do like a full session on itself. But that being said, we have come to time. So I just want to say a really big thank you to everybody for coming. And again, thank you, Joseph, for speaking. It was a really great session. Just to kind of, as we close off, just to remind people about the recordings and the giveaways. The recordings for all of the sessions are going to be distributed after the series is concluded. So there's 2 more sessions. There's next week and then the one on the 31st of August. After that, the series will conclude and records will be shared, and we'll be emailing all the attendees the session, the links to recordings, and also kind of putting out some posts on social media to say that they've been shared. In terms of the giveaway, yes, we are doing a giveaway for the series. That's also going to be drawn at the end of the series. And how that simply works is if you've registered for the series and you attend, each time you attend a session, you will get 1 entry. And, so if you attend all 5 sessions, you've got 5 entries. If you attend 3, you've got 3. And then a giveaway will be drawn after the series is concluded, and we'll be also notifying the winners who've won. But again, that's all I need to say at the end. So I just want to say again, thank you to Joseph for speaking.
You're welcome.
And thank you to
My
everybody
pleasure.
else. And thank you to everybody else for coming along as well. Next week, we'll be joined by Michael Grandel, who will be our guest speaker next week. So thank you, everybody. And we'll stop the recording and just say thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye, Mark.
Thank you. Bye.